please raise your hand or just even send a message in the chat. That would be lovely. Perfect. Wonderful. So I have 2 confirmations, so we're going to get started. So once again, thank you for joining us. I am Anne. I am the head of customer success here at Filestage, and joining me today is Joe. He is the head of sales at Filestage.
Hello, everybody.
All right. So Filestage has been a remote company for over 2 years now. We have, I believe, over 5 years of experience of being remote at Filestage. Me personally, I have been working remotely for almost 2.5 years. And Joe, you've been working remotely for quite some time as well, correct?
Yeah, about the same. About 2 years now.
Okay. So this is a new environment for many people, but we believe ourselves as being pretty experienced in the field of working from home and being remote, and also working with colleagues that are remote. And so we'd love to just share some of our experience with you and go through how you can be more effective working from home. That being said, we are going to go through a little presentation, but we really do want to open the floor up to you guys. So please ask us questions. We will try to make this as collaborative as we possibly can. All right. So let's go ahead and get started on this. So we are now being forced to work from home. It's a really unfortunate circumstance that we are now in this let's say lifestyle of working from home, being forced into it. But there are ways that we can still be successful from working from home. Here's the agenda for today. We are going to talk about what we do here at Filestage. We are going to talk about when you can switch to remote, other than through this horrific coronavirus, but there are other times that companies have decided to switch to remote. We'll talk about why we actually switched to being remote, and that we'll talk about the 3 key success factors of remote teams. And then again, we're just going to ask questions, have you ask questions. If you want to interrupt me at any time, please do. Both Joe and I will be happy to answer any questions. So why do companies typically switch to working from home or working remotely? Well, first of all, they can start acting internationally. So we have a customer base spread out across the whole globe, and we are able to cover all of those time zones and have the best people working in them. And if you can't find the right specialist, you are able to actually find those specialists outside of your exact area. So we are headquartered in Stuttgart typically, but we were able to find people from India to Colombia to United States, all over the world. And as well that your employees need flexibility. So working from home gives people the freedom to find a schedule that works for them. It also allows people to accomplish their goals in a much more relaxed way, but still hit their targets on time. And last, we are able to save the commuting time. So I typically live in Boston, and to commute to an office within Boston, it takes over an hour. That's 2 hours a day that I am now saving by working from home. Furthermore, it's fantastic for the environment. All right, so why did we start to build a remote company? Well, as I mentioned earlier, we have an international customer base, and we couldn't find those specialists. So we decided, why do we have to limit ourselves to the boundaries of our city instead of collaborating worldwide? And when we actually did our first experiment with this, we put up 1 job application for our developers, and we received over 200 applicants. And that is without us using headhunters, with no recruiters, nothing extreme. I mean, we just put the application online and got over 200 people applying. So what are the 3 success factors of a remote team? And what do you actually need to run a remote team? The first thing is, you always need to make sure that the people that you hire fit your culture and fit your values. And at Filestage, we have 3 values that we really believe in and really define every single person at our company. The first thing is that we are keen to learn. We are curious individuals who always want to better ourselves and understand why something's happening, not just what to do next. We also take ownership. So after we learn about why something's happening, we share the responsibility and we fix the problem or fix whatever's in front of us. And this is a really key factor whenever you work remotely, that you have to be an owner to everything that's going on. Even if you're a manager or just an individual contributor or whatever, you have to have that clear responsibility that you feel comfortable taking on goals. And lastly, we play fair. I think this is just a normal thing that every company should live by. You want to work with nice people and you want to be part of a team. You don't want to work in a cutthroat environment. And next, we do have workflows and processes. So whenever we have any recurring tasks, we automatically make a guide for that. And we also have checklists. So if Joe or I have a question on something, instead of us having, which you would typically have in a normal office environment, you can talk to the person sitting next to you and they come over and help you through something. Instead, we can just forward a guide. And this makes our processes really, really clear and easy to follow consistently. Next, we also do goal planning. So we have objective and key results, and we do quarterly rocks. So our objective and key results tend to be this really big overarching goal that we want to hit this by the end of the quarter. But it's such a big goal that actually the expectation is that you should only get like 80% of the way there or 95% of the way there. There's a whole thought process on OKRs. But our main guide is OKRs, and then we break those OKRs down into smaller goals, which we call rocks. And within those smaller goals, we have key actions. So when I start my week, the first thing I do is I look at my quarterly goals, and so do my team members. We look at our quarterly goals, and we're actually able to structure our day and structure our week around what our quarterly goals are. So you constantly are able to work towards small goals to get to the bigger goal. And last thing we do very well at Filestage is we have meeting hierarchies. So we still get together every single day as a team and we do a daily stand-up. And that daily stand-up, we talk about what we accomplished yesterday and what we plan to accomplish today. Then we have weekly meetings. So we have weekly meetings not only with our own team, where we talk about how things are going and what things we need to improve, but we also have weekly meetings with other teams too. So Joe and I, we have a weekly meeting, both the sales team and customer success team. We have a weekly meeting every Tuesday. The marketing team and I, we have a meeting every Thursday. So we are always collaborating together. And then we have monthly meetings as well. And we do that as needed with different departments, or we do that as needed as a company. So with our company, we do an all hands meeting the last Friday of every month. And on that, we can talk about all of our accomplishments that happened for the last month and what we plan to accomplish for the next month. Any questions on that part? All right.
Yeah, and I think one thing we can maybe touch on there is, like we were talking before about, you were talking about sort of replacing the way in the office you can, just go and ask someone a question, and we replaced that sort of functionality with having guides, so it's really easy for people to get the information they want in the same sort of way as if they were, just going over and asking someone for that information. What else do you think is good for replacing that in-office atmosphere? I know one thing that we use a lot is like the HR random channel, so we can just share sort of any sort of chit chat or like personal updates, and we create that sort of community feeling you'd have from being in the office. I know that's something that you really like.
I love that.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and share the screen really quickly, and I'll just show people what we talk about on that. Share my screen. All right, really quickly, I will just show you here. So I love this HR random channel. We get to share life updates. Also, we just get to share really funny things. So as we know, unfortunately, this whole toilet paper crisis is going on. So my colleague was able to post about her getting toilet paper in this rough world that we're living in at the moment. I do think Slack is like a really great way to kind of cut through all of that horribleness of just meetings and work all the time. You're still able to have that water cooler talk. So yeah, I agree with you completely, Joe. That's wonderful.
Cool.
Yeah, so I think, as you said, Slack is a really great option for talking. Also, we use Asana a lot, too. And I think all teams here use Asana very similarly, but very differently as well. So I use Asana because my team's actually spread out across the globe. I mean, we have somebody in Bali, we have somebody over in Germany, and I'm here in the United States. And when it's 11 a.m. my time, it's 11 p.m. in Bali. So it's really tough sometimes for me to schedule and coordinate properly with how to assign a task, because I don't want to be sending him a Slack message at 1 a.m. or 11 p.m. or whatever, because that can be kind of like overreaching and disturbing somebody during their sleeping hours. So we use a tool called Asana, where if I just have a quick thing that needs to be done, and it can be done when he wakes up in the morning and starts his day, he can just log on to Asana and see any tasks that I schedule for him too. We also schedule all recurring tasks there. So if I were to go on holiday for a week, all I have to do is reschedule all of my recurring tasks and pass it over to my colleague as well. Yeah. The other tool that I use a ton of is Loom here. And I'm a huge advocate of Loom. I believe that face-to-face collaboration, even online, shouldn't change. So you should always show your face, show your emotions, show the way that you are interacting with others, even if you're not actually in person. So Loom lets me do this, where I can share my screen and I can actually give people step-by-step directions or tell them the problem I'm facing, and really actually give them a really well-rounded way of looking at my perspective on something. And then for video conferencing, we use Hangouts a lot at Filestage. We're G Suite users, so Hangouts is kind of our easy go-to. We recently started using Zoom about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago. Big fan of Zoom. It's wonderful. So Zoom is a way for us to not only talk to each other, but also talk to our clients. And if you're having a very large group, which does happen, especially at larger companies. So when you're speaking to a group of, let's say, 5 or more, it's very hard to see everyone on Google Hangouts because everybody's going to be in a line on the right-hand side. Zoom lets you do like this Brady Bunch style, so you can see everybody in your meeting at all times. I think that's really beautiful. And then for content review and approval, we personally use Filestage. I mean, that's our tool. So we do eat our own dog food here. But Filestage allows for us to collaborate internally and actually give feedback on everything going on. So let me just show you a really quick example of how that works. How do I share my screen again? Sorry, give me a moment. All right. Joe, can you send me over that link? I am not logged into my Filestage account.
1 second.
Yeah, but so I'll show you that in a minute. But other than that, we also use Pipedrive as our CRM. And for us, this becomes really, really crucial, because when you're talking to customers all the time, or talking to Joe, you do sales and you use the CRM too, it's really important to always leave your notes or feedback in there, because with that water cooler talk, you typically do talk about your customers, and so everybody knows what's going on and where your customers stand. But with a remote company or with a work from home company, it's really important to always over communicate. And you have to over communicate on platforms that can increase transparency. And for us, that is our CRM. And to top that off, We also, as I said, use Filestage for this. And here I can now share this. So when we do share any material, whether that be marketing or sales material or customer success product material, we always put that over Filestage, and we have communications over here. Because typically what you do is you send a Slack message, you're like, hey guys, what do you think of this? Or you send an email, what do you think of this? But communication can get lost. People can private message you. People can send you messages on different threads, and you just lose that communication altogether. So with Filestage, you're able to have really nice conversations here. You're able to have version tracking, and you're able to also reply to people's comments. So Nicholas said this, and Doug said that in return. I think that this is all goes along the factor of just constantly over communicating. And then for customer support, so for any customer feedback, we use Intercom. There are other tools that you can use, Zendesk, as well as, oh my gosh, Drift. There's a lot of tools out there. There's user.com. We use that Intercom. I'm a big fan of Intercom, mostly because people can do live chats with you even when you're offline, and it still goes to a support message, unlike Zendesk, where they can't have a live conversation with you, where it goes to a support ticket. And then last but not least, there is this cloud storage or asset management. Google Drive is what we use. Again, we're a G Suite customer. I know there are a few other tools out there, like Dropbox is a good one, Orasun.co is a good one. There are a lot of tools that you can potentially use, and it will help streamline any data sharing which you have. Those are really the key tools that we use at Filestage to make our online collaboration and work from home situation work for us. But really, now I would like to just open up the floor to you and let you ask any questions to either Joe or myself that about remote work or about working from home and how we can help you and your team.
Yeah, and one thing I just wanted to mention as well, looking at that list of tools, which I think is like a good tip, is that when you're using like Slack and you're using Intercom and you have Asana messages coming in, I used to find when I started working remote that I would be just really distracted with all these messages coming from these different tools all the time. So I started to just have like set times of the day where I would go into each tool if it needs to go in like once a day, or if I need to go in 3 times a day, check for messages. So I think that's potentially a good tip, just to not get bogged down in, same as when you're in the office and you have people talking to you all the time. It's, sometimes you just need to focus. I think same when you're working remote, just because you're working remote, it's not always super easy to focus when you have all these messages. So it's good to have blocks where you turn them off and close them down, and then open them up and respond to everything in one go. I've always found to be helpful.
I completely agree with you on that. I actually do encourage my teammates to do that too. We have one person who really focuses on support, and I know it's very difficult, especially with Intercom, that when a customer writes in and you feel the need to follow up with that person immediately. But even if you were to put it in your calendar, that you put like, this is my focus mode or my focus time, your teammates will know that they have to jump in and help in certain situations because you're focused and you have things turned off. I think that's really important. But it also goes along with over communicating as well. Okay. Any other questions? We are happy to answer them. Looks like we might have one coming in.
We have a couple of people writing now. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Keep dropping something. I'm sorry. It might be very noisy. And guys, feel free to interrupt us at any time if we're talking and you have a question. We'll get to the question, we promise. So something I typically get asked about is motivation. Joe, how do you typically stay motivated even when you work from home?
I think like similar ways as in the office. I try and work in like blocks, So working 2-hour blocks with no distractions, no phone, no other tabs. I actually use another tool called Forest, which you have like a blacklist. Yeah, so then if you try and and it's amazing how many times you just like subconsciously do it. Like you try and open up BBC News and it tells you, boom, you're working, close this down. So I think that's a great way to stay focused. And in terms of motivation, just like similar ways you would do it in the office, have like a list, 2 or 3 things you want to accomplish that day. Goals that you can accomplish in whatever time frame it is. So it's that morning, that afternoon, that day. And I find that a good way to stay motivated.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Ebony is asking us, what advice do we have with working for clients remotely? She sees this as a great way to work for colleagues, but what about for her clients? She works in the real estate field. So I think there are a few ways that I would look at this. It depends what you're trying to share with your clients and how you're trying to interact with them. So I think even with your clients, you can do video chat like we are doing now. I find that I'm even doing it with my friends at this point. So I'm even having online happy hours with my friends, and we're finding different ways of communicating in this quarantined world. On top of that, by using certain tools, like I mentioned, Orasun.co or using Dropbox, you can begin sharing files that maybe don't need approval, that you just want to share like as a file as a whole. If you want to actually get client feedback on any files, I'd really recommend using Filestage, where they can approve or reject files based on that. And then for clients as well, you can set up unique Slack channels for clients. So I can show you my Slack. I have it with a lot of different groups that I'm part of, but I know a lot of companies that use Slack for client communication, where they don't need support. They just want the clients to be able to message them at any time. So let me just go ahead and show you in my Slack really quickly. This one, if you can see it. So over here on this left-hand side, I have a bunch of different groups that I'm part of. And you can actually set up free accounts with your clients, and your clients can have conversations with you at any time that you'd like. Then as well, what other tools would you recommend, Joe? I think you could.
Well, one thing I would say that I think you touched on yesterday, and I think especially being important in real estate when it's all about sort of creating that relationship, would be to not just switch to phone calls, but to try and engage people face-to-face in the video, in like a video chat like we're doing now. I know you mentioned it yesterday, but just being able to see people's faces, read their emotions, you're going to get so much more value from the conversation than if you just switch all your communications to phone calls.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, you can get so much from just somebody's face. I think one of the coolest examples is I was working with a colleague for over 2 years, hadn't met him in person. And when I finally met him in person, I was like, oh my gosh, you're like exactly the same person you are that I knew on video for the past 2 years. Because it really does show you a lot about a person as long as you can see them and see how they interact with others.
Yeah.
Okay, so Joe, Catherine asked you, what was the name of the program that you used to block distractions?
It's called Forest, and I just put the link to their website in the chat. So they have like a Chrome extension where you can create your blacklist, and then they also have a mobile app as well. So you can have both turned on at the same time, and then you can't have distractions either through different websites or through messages coming into your phone. And what's really nice is that for every sort of work block, it grows like a tree in like a virtual forest. Exactly. And then at the end of the week or month, you get a visualization of how much you've really focused by how big your sort of work forest is over that month.
Very cool. All right. So Bridget asked us, do you ever experience technical problems in terms of connectivity, and how do we solve for them? For us, it's really annoying if the partners can't see us or hear us during these conferences. So yes, I think we all experience this. For us, I mean, if I'm experiencing video issues, typically we just turn off the video and go by voice. That helps a lot. Also, I've noticed the program which you use tends to help too. So Zoom, for instance, is like fantastic, even if you have slower internet. But yes, it does happen, and it's a shame, especially when we're living in a world that we're all working from home.
Yeah, and I agree. And sometimes like it's out of your control if it's like the client or partner's internet speed rather than your own that's causing the problems. And I think sometimes like you just have to sort of make light of it as well. Not get frustrated during the call, not show frustration, make a bit of a joke of it, and just sort of not let it affect the tone of the meeting.
Yeah, agreed. And trying different outcomes there too. So as I said, with you can turn off the video, but you can also decrease quality. I know in Google Hangouts this is definitely true. If you go into settings, you can actually change from being best quality to lower quality. So it takes less bandwidth to actually communicate too. So. And if worse comes to worse, sometimes I do have to give them a call, and I do everything over my computer. So I use AirCall to call my clients on their phones, and that I like AirCall because I'm able to call different countries free of charge, where unlike my cell phone where it would cost me quite a bit of money to call Europe, I can just do it straight on AirCall. And sometimes I resort to that. My preference is always video call.
Yeah, right. And then to answer Ebony's question about like easiest tools for non-tech clients, I think if you're trying to do video calls for real estate, you know, like maybe even WhatsApp, like Anne just mentioned, WhatsApp video calls could be like probably the most user-friendly and the least barriers for someone to use it. They more than likely have that app already. And other than that, I'd recommend Zoom as well.
Yeah. US like, a different tool for sure, but even Facebook Messenger video. Sorry for interrupting you, Joe.
Yeah, no. But yeah, I would say like if you have a tool, your client has a tool already, like they have WhatsApp, but they don't use it for video calls very much, or you have FaceTime, I would switch to the tools you already have. And then I'd probably recommend something like Zoom, where you can join from any device, any operating system, and whatever they're using, you know, you're going to be able to connect.
Yeah. So Bridget asked us about doing visualizations. So actually Zoom, I feel like we're just advocating Zoom right now. Zoom does have a whiteboard solution that you can do that on, but as well, I use Filestage a lot for this. I don't know if you do too, Joe, but my team actually, like, we'll throw up a Google Doc on there and people just like leave drops in comments on places saying they want to change something, they want this updated, but that's if we don't need to do it in real time. So if we do it in real time, then we would use Zoom they have a whiteboard option that you can draw and it records the videos and stuff. But
yeah. And then real time, I'd also maybe recommend like a Google tool called Jamboard, which is not super well known, but it's in the Google suite. I think everyone has access to it, and that's like a live interactive whiteboard. So you can definitely throw up ideas on there in real time. And then, if you don't need to do it in real time, Filestage.
Yeah.
My dog just popped up behind me there.
Very cute. It's a really cute dog. I'll give you credit on that. So are there any other questions that we can help you answer? As we said, we're both client-facing people. So Joe works in sales and I work in customer success and support. So we are very comfortable working not only with externals, but because we both are the leads of our departments, we also work very closely with our internal team too. So we have really great experience on both ends. I'll just go over some questions that I've been asked recently. And one of those questions, I brought it up yesterday, I think, but my sister works in sales as well, but she works from an office where they have to reroute calls and everything. And they're very used to picking up the phone and then, oh, this isn't for me. Let me send you over to the desk of the next person. And she goes, how do we even replace something like that? That's just not something that like ever occurred to us that we would have to replace. And there are tools online that allow you to reroute calls, even if it comes to you and you need to send it over to your colleague. So for instance, we use AirCall. And AirCall actually allows us to have different calls for different departments. So when they call the support team and I realize it's a sales call, I actually just pass it over to the sales team. And we have people, as I said, in Canada, we have one person in Spain. So any of them can answer, even though they're in completely different places, time zones, and everything. It's really important to find the tool stack that works for you so you can digitalize, as Bridget's saying.
Another thing I really like about AirCall is, I think something that's really important when like running a remote team is the analytics it gives you. So obviously when you're not working with people, you hire people that you trust, but it's hard to always know exactly what's going on. So I think having tools where like they have good data visualization about what people are doing and when they're doing it is something that can be super helpful. And that's something that AirCall definitely has in terms of time spent on phone and things like that.
And it records all the calls too, so you can always
it records all the calls. So if you're not good at taking notes while you're talking to someone, you can then go back and you can listen, and then you can write your notes up, which is something I always do.
Yeah. There's that tool, and then for also recording, there's chorus.ai, and there's firefly.ai too, I believe. But I love chorus.ai. It actually records all of your calls for you, puts it onto the cloud, just like AirCall does, to be honest. But then it actually does note taking for you. So it will actually pick out keywords, so you can determine which keywords potentially made this sale more effective than another sale. Also, Firefly and Chorus.ai also record on multiple platforms, so you don't have to use just AirCall. It will also use Google Hangouts. It can record on Google Hangouts, and it can also record on other like Zoom and other platforms like that. So Ebony asked about for iPhones. AirCall.io actually does have an iPhone app. So I have iPhone. Let me double check if I have it downloaded. Yeah. So I can just open up AirCall here, and I'm not logged in at the moment, but it works perfectly on iPhone. And actually, when somebody reroutes the call to my iPhone, to my computer, if I was signed in, I would actually get the call on my iPhone too. Like, I highly recommend it. I'm just always by my computer. So in days of quarantine, I'm not really leaving the house so I'm always near my computer. Okay. Any other questions that we could potentially help you all with?
And one thing I just wanted to mention, Andy, you touched on earlier, that I think is a really cool idea, was in terms of like, not keeping them around and stuff, why everyone's spending more time inside, was your virtual sort of virtual beer time idea. So I took that idea and I have 3 arranged over the weekend with different groups of friends in different parts of the world. So yeah, I think that's something that I'm looking forward to. Looking forward to being able to catch up with people, maybe more than I would do otherwise, having beers with people that, I'm not usually in the same city as. So yeah, I think that was a really good idea of yours. Yeah,
no, honestly, that has been completely wonderful. I'm an extrovert by nature and I live alone. This has been horrific. As for everyone else, I'm not, but having that small time to meet up with friends after work is just such a relief. But then, as you mentioned too, I'm meeting up with friends that I would never have met with otherwise. So I have friends in Germany, I have friends in Malta. We're all getting together on video chat and hanging out and just having a drink and talking. So it's been great. But also you can do this at the workplace too. So my team, and I got this actually from the marketing team at Filestage, and I think your team's now doing it too, where we do a coffee break once a week. So we set a time for 35 minutes once a week where we all sit together with a glass of tea or coffee and talk. Nothing work related allowed. We just talk and hang out and get to know each other as though we were in the office. So it's really morale.
And that also reminds me of something else that we use on Slack we haven't discussed, which is like a Slack plugin called like Donut, which I think if you work in like which is basically a random pairing tool where it pairs you with a different person in your team, organization, however you got it set up each week or every other week. And then you just arrange like a quick 10-minute call. And the only rule is that you're not allowed to talk about work. So that's it's a good way to get to to get to know people better, to focus on something else for a few minutes. And that's a Slack plugin called Donut. Which is something we use as well, which kind of has a similar effect.
Yeah, totally. And then we use icebreakers before meetings sometimes. So if the meeting, especially before very large meetings that are going to go on for a long time, like our all hands, we ask an icebreaker that's like, what was your favorite childhood food? Or something silly like that. And we can all just do it very quickly. But that's how we do it at Filestage.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well with online meetings, to have an icebreaker, especially if there's more than 3 or 4 people. It's always a problem with big online meetings. Most people, scared to talk. So having like some sort of icebreaker at the beginning where everyone has to say something definitely means that the whole meeting is like more collaborative.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So do we have any final questions or anything else? Okay, so if there are no other questions, I'm going to put my email in this chat, and you are able to reach out to me at any time. My email is ann.krieger@filestage.io. I am happy to hop on a call with you, just talk through different solutions for your team, especially, as I said, I'm really customer facing, so if you have any customer facing questions, I'm very, very happy to help you. Also, if you have any questions on how to structure meetings, I'm pretty good at that as well. So
yeah, and same for me as well.
Perfect. So thank you guys so much. Any other final questions? No. Cool.
Cool. Thank you guys for joining.
Thank you, and have a great weekend. Happy Friday.
Have a good weekend. Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Cheers.